Hi everyone, hello. How are you all doing? I do hope that you are all doing fine. I do hope that you are all safe and sound and healthy at the comfort of your homes. Most especially right now that we are placed again under MECQ, which means that we cannot go out of our houses for non-essential things. And with that, I think now is the right time or the best time for you to study hard and to review all our lessons, most especially that the month of June is about to end, and by July, we will be having our final examination already. So, with that, I think it's proper that you would really study and you would really show me that you are very much dedicated in the subject, given that it has relation to the majors that you have chosen for your course. And at the same time, these things that I'm actually discussing to you are very much important, most especially that they would often have relationship to your daily lives and your future profession as teachers. So again, please do study hard and please do stay at home. Now we are already at lesson 6 for our subject, and we will be discussing about the Civil Code of the Philippines. However, Civil Code is actually very broad. It is composed of 5 books, but we are mostly focused on persons and family relations because persons and family relations, um, the these are the provisions of our civil code which has actually which can actually affect you, most especially if you plan on creating a family in the future. And I think as future teachers, you will also be able to protect your students if you are very much knowledgeable with our civil code, most especially that most of you will be handling the records of our students, and sometimes some provisions of the civil code will actually affect the status of your students. So that's why some things I have included very important provisions under the civil code that would actually affect the status and the capacity of your students. At the same time, again, the civil code would actually really help you if you plan on creating a family in the future. So I hope that you would study very well this subject. You take down notes with my discussion because, again, I will be, my discussion for this subject will come out in your pre-final examination. Again, we'll be having our final examination in July, but as we are going to end our the month of June, I will be giving a pre-final examination so that your coverage for the final examination would be actually lesser. So with that, let's start our lesson. So, to begin with, we have Lesson 6. Lesson 6 is all about the Civil Code of the Philippines. The Civil Code of the Philippines is actually the codification of our civil laws in the Philippines. And when I say civil law, it is that branch of law that actually treats our personal and family relationship. At the same time, it treats about how we go about with our properties and with our successional rights. At the same time, it actually is in charge with the effects of our the obligations and the contracts that we enter into. So basically, under the Civil Code of the Philippines, nobody is actually if you violate the provisions of our civil code, you are not actually are considered as criminal because you cannot go to jail just because you have violated the provisions of our civil code. However, you are you will be liable to pay damages, and we will talk about damages later. So again, I have just chosen some specific provisions of the civil code. These provisions actually have relationship to your status as a person, as an individual, as a citizen of this country, and at the same time talks about the relationship between children and their family and the obligations of parents to their children. And again, these are very important provisions because you will be handling with a lot of children, most especially that you are future teachers. And for you to better understand their status, and for you to better protect your students in the future, then I think it's very important for you to have enough knowledge and basic understanding on the Civil Code of the Philippines. And the status and this relationship of the children to their family would also affect their their school records, because these things would actually appear. There's some information about the children would actually appear in their um, in their in their school records. So basically, for you to better understand the status of the children and for you to input the correct information in their school records, then it's better that you would also understand the Civil Code of the Philippines. So let's begin with the first provision, our first provision for the Civil Code of the Philippines. Article 19. Article 19 reads that every person must, in the exercise of his rights and the performance of his duties, act with justice, give everyone his due, and observe honesty and good faith. You have to understand that under this provision, each one of us has our rights. However, upon the exercise of our rights, we must not abuse our rights just because other people have rights too. That's why we are reminded that in the performance of our duties and the exercise of our rights, we must act with justice, give everyone his due, and observe honesty and good faith. Because eventually, if you as a person would abuse your rights, then your rights would cease to exist because you will be now held liable for the damages that you have caused upon the abuse of your rights. So again, if you are in the exercise of your rights and the performance of your duty, remember to always act with justice, give everyone his due, and observe honesty and good faith. So for Article 26, let me read. Every person shall respect the dignity, personality, privacy, and peace of mind of his neighbors and other persons. The following and similar acts, though they may not constitute a criminal offense, shall produce a cause of action for damages, prevention, and other relief. Number 1, prying into the privacy of another's residence. Number 2, meddling with or disturbing the private life or family relations of another. Number 3, intriguing to cause another to be alienated from his friends. Number 4, vexing or humiliating another on account of his religious beliefs, lowly station in life, place of birth, physical defect, or other personal condition. This is actually under this provision, you are taught that you must respect the dignity of every person and that you must respect the privacy of all persons. So again, regardless of who are these people, regardless of what they do in life, regardless of the things that they have shown you, you must respect their privacy and that you must also respect their dignity, because under these provisions, even if these acts that are mentioned here, that are enumerated in this article, even if they do not constitute a criminal offense, but still under the Civil Code, you are still liable, and thus you have to pay for damages. So na ay katungod imong silingan every time manghilabot ka silang kinabuhi, mangintriga ka, mangchismis ka sa kinabuhi sa uban, mangguba ka og relasyon sa mga family, mangguba ka og relationship sa mga mag-asawa, or vexing or humiliating pakulawan nimo ubang tao just because they believe in other religions. Pobre sila, lowly station in life, sa asas lagi panganak or tungod kay naa sila physical defects sa ilahang lawas, or that they have other personal conditions, they are suffering from other personal conditions, and you are trying to humiliate them, imus na pakulawan just because of these conditions, then under our Civil Code, you are liable to pay damages, because again, every person in a society, regardless of who they are, have dignity, and that each one of us, regardless of the things that we are doing in life, we have our own privacy, and our privacy must be protected at all times. So that's why under Article 26, even if these acts are not criminal, you will not be criminally liable for doing these acts, but still you are liable for paying damages because you have violated the rights of other people, you have violated the right to privacy, and that you have you have violated their dignity as persons. So basically, we must respect and treat one another as basic human beings. That's all is needed under this article, okay? So Article 27, under Article 27, any person suffering from material or moral loss because a public servant or employee refuses or neglects without just cause to perform his official duty may file an action for damages and other relief against the latter without prejudice to any disciplinary administrative action that may be taken. So for you to understand, under Article 27 is actually for government employees and government officials. And for you, I think all of you, if once you apply with the Department of Education as future teachers, you will be considered as government employees. And thus, under our civil code, you actually have the obligation to perform your functions and duties to your clients or those people who are expected to get your services. However, under Article 27, you are obligated to perform your duties because if you neglect your duties without just cause or refuse to give service to other people, then you will be liable for damages. So under this article, we are trying to stop the bribery system here in the Philippines, that there are some government officials and some government employees who would actually neglect their duties just because they have been bribed for other people. So again, we need to stop the bribery system here in the Philippines. That's why government employees will be held liable if ever they would neglect their duties because of this. And in fact, under this provision, even if you are liable under the Civil Code, you are still liable under the under our administrative laws. Hence, you will not only pay for damages, but at the same time, you would also be removed from office if ever you will be found guilty of neglecting your duties as government employees. So under this provision, you must again perform your tasks and functions in good faith, and that you must remember that you are government employees and that you have the obligation and the responsibility to serve the Filipino people. So that's why if ever you fail, you refuse, or you neglect your duties, you are liable for damages. So under Article 32 is actually a very long provision. However, just to summarize Article 32, it talks about the damages that would actually incur if ever you as a person would violate the rights of other people. Again, each people has our rights, and under this provision, if you are actually if you have been following our lessons from lesson 1, these are actually our constitutional freedom. These are the rights that are given to us under our constitution. And hence, under the Civil Code of the Philippines, once any person would actually violate these rights as provided for under the Constitution, then you will be held liable for damages. You have to pay for damages if ever this these provisions under these rights under our Constitution, the freedom that has been given to us, will be violated, not just by government officials or government employees, but also by private individuals. So again, our rights under the Philippine Constitution is very sacred, and they must be protected at all times. So our constitutional rights, once if ever you will violate them, then you are not just criminally liable, di lang ka mapriso, but also civilly liable. So you have to pay for damages just in case you violate these rights under our civil code. So that's how important your rights is, that we are protected once there are people and government officials that would actually violate them. So Article 40 of the Civil Code is actually in relation with Article 41, so they must be read together. Article 40 states that birth determines personality, but the conceived child shall be considered born for all purposes that are favorable to it, provided it be born later with the conditions specified in the following article. So for Article 41, for civil purposes, the fetus is considered born if it is alive at the time it is completely delivered from the mother's womb. However, if the fetus had an intrauterine life of less than 7 months, it is not deemed born if it dies within 24 hours after its complete delivery from the material womb. And then Article 42 states that civil personality is extinguished by that. First, let's discuss Article 40 and Article 41 first. Again, under this under Article 40, it's very important for you to know that it's not birth that determines personality. However, a personality of a person is created not by birth but by its conception. So basically, once a child has been conceived already, napurma na siya inside the womb of a mother, it is considered to be born. It actually has a presumptive personality, and it is considered to be born for all purposes favorable to it. And what kind of purposes it is? Successional rights, kaya naa siya yung manahon from the parents. So basically, once gibuntis na gina siya gani, if ever naa siya, if ever that child will actually be an heir from his father, then basically it shall be considered born under our civil code. That child is actually considered born even if napa siya inside the womb, for all the purposes favorable to it. So favorable man na ang mo succeed ka of property from your parents. So that's why it shall be na siya right to be a successor of that of the property of his parents. So basically, under our civil code, a fetus is already considered a person if it is alive from the time it is completely delivered from the mother's womb. So, if mugwas na siya sa tiyan sa iyang ginika at sa iyang mama, then it is already considered a person. However, if less than 7 months gani siya, gipanganak siya, gibuntis siya for only less than 7 months, kay premature siya. If less than 7 months siyang gikugo sa iyang mga parent, sa iyang mother, or less than 7 months siyang gibuntis and niguwa siya kay premature siya due to some underlying conditions, then basically it cannot be considered as a person if ever it will die within 24 hours sa pagpanganak niya. So again, from the moment it is completely delivered from the mother's womb, then it needs 24 hours to live. If hindi siya mabuhi within 24 hours, mamatay ra siya within 24 hours, then he shall not be considered born and he will not have any personality at all. He will not be considered as a person under our civil code. However, if within 24 hours, nabuhi siya for 24 hours, regardless, pagkaugma namatay siya, as long as nabuhi siya for 24 hours, then under our civil code, that child is already considered as a person. He is already considered as born. So basically, he will have some rights, the rights that we are enjoying as persons too. So basically, muna ang ato ang bantayan. If less than 7 months, mamatay siya within 24 hours, then that child is not considered born. And he will not have, or he will not acquire any civil personality at all. And under Article 42, it says that civil personality is extinguished by death. So, ang imong personality as a person, mawala ra only if mamatay ka. So basically, death extinguishes your civil personality under our civil code. So now we have come to the Family Code of the Philippines, the family or EO number 292, or the Family Code of the Philippines. The Family Code of the Philippines is actually it has been incorporated under our civil code, and it has codified the rules on the relationship between family members, on how to start a family and with family, the relations of family. So basically, under Article 1, it has provided for the definition of marriage. So marriage under Article 1 is, under Article 1, marriage is a special contract of permanent union between a man and a woman entered and into in accordance with law for the establishment of conjugal life, conjugal and family life. It is the foundation of the family and an inviolable social institution whose nature, consequences, and incidents are governed by law and not subject to stipulation, except that marriage settlements may fix the property relations during the marriage within the limits provided under this code. First, let's discuss the important words or the important phrases that you would actually see in this definition. First, marriage is actually a special contract. Again, special contract. Kontrata siya between a man and a woman. So basically, under our family code, it has been specified that marriage is only between a man and a woman. So it's a special contract between the two of them of permanent union. So meaning, permanente ang ilahang pagkuyugay sa usap-usap. Their union with each other as man and woman is permanent. So that's why di ka makapagustog bulag here in the Philippines. And we have a lot of laws that would actually protect our families. And it says here, entered into in accordance with law for the establishment of conjugal and family life. Again, that's the purpose why we enter into marriage, why we want to create a family, to establish conjugal and family life. Again, that's the purpose of marriage, to establish conjugal and family life. And we must remember under our Constitution, and it has been embodied in this definition of marriage, it is the foundation of family. It is the foundation of the family because marriage is the start of a new family. Once a man and a woman enter into marriage, they become a new family, and they would actually start a family by having children. So, again, marriage is an inviolable social institution whose nature, consequences, and incidents are governed by law. So again, institution, social institution, and marriage. And we have a lot of laws that would actually govern our marriage. And the family code and the civil code are among those laws that would actually protect our the married life and the family, every single Filipino family. And again, it's not subject to stipulation. Again, kung enter ka into marriage, di ka pwede makabot-buot lang kung unsa inyong ganahan as unsa inyong ganahan buhaton as mag-asawa, or unsa inyong mga rights and obligation ang mag-asawa, because all these stipulations must be provided by our laws. Dili nang kamukha-mo ray magbuot-buot. So that's it. Again, about property relationship between husband and wife, it's actually quite the property relations is actually quite gubot siya. It's quite complicated, and I don't think that you would it has an effect on you. So basically, that's why let's not touch about property relations, because eventually property relations would only matter during separation or annulment of of spouses. So basically, let's not touch about it, because here our purpose is to learn about the establishment of family life. So that's why mura na to ang i-discuss here. So basically, Article 2 of the Family Code should be read also together with Article 3 of the Family Code. So let's read. Article 2 states that no marriage shall be valid unless these essential requisites are present. Legal capacity of the contracting parties, who must be a male and a female, and consent freely given in the presence of the solemnizing officer. And Article 3, the formal requisites of marriage are authority of the solemnizing officer, a valid marriage license except in the cases provided for Chapter 2 of this title, and a marriage ceremony which takes place with the appearance of the contracting parties before the solemnizing officer and their personal declaration that they take each other as husband and wife in the presence of not less than 2 witnesses of legal age. The first one, under Article 2, is actually the essential requisite. So first, the legal capacity. A man and a woman, if they want to enter into marriage, they must have the legal capacity of entering into marriage. And what do you say legal capacity? Then they must be of age. They must be 18 years old already. That's the only time that you can marry. However, for those who are 18 years old but not more than 21 years old, you must actually need the consent of your parents. So basically, you will only have the legal capacity at the age of 18 to marry, but at the same time, it is required that you will be able to present a valid consent from your parents if you are less than 21 years old. And then another condition for you to remember to have the legal capacity to be married is that you are free to marry. You are not married. You are not already married, because if you are already married, and you want to marry another person, then you don't actually have the legal capacity to marry. So that's why it's very important that you have the legal capacity to marry. And then the second essential requisite is for you to give consent freely given. So again, dapat tulay na pugos ninyo when you actually marry. You must give your consent. So basically, number 2 is the consent not from your parents but from you as a man and a woman. Kamun yung duwa willing to marry each other. So that's actually very, very important under our laws. You must be free. You must give your own consent. So meaning you are free to marry another person. Dili kay napugos ra ka. Again, it's very important nga it must come from your own will nga muminyo ka. Dili kay tungod gipugos ra ka sa imong parents or gipugos ra ka ani niya. Again, once you enter into marriage, it must come from your own free will. And for the formal requisites, first, there must be authority of the solemnizing officer. So who are these persons allowed to marry you, or who are these persons who have given authorization under our laws to become solemnizing officer to be married? I'm not sure if it's provided here, but yeah, there's actually an enumeration under our civil code as to who are allowed to marry, and I think you would know kinsa na siya under our kanon sa itong kalagmitan na to is mga pari. Atong makita, di ba? Mga pari. One of them are priests, another one are mga mayors. Mayors are allowed to actually marry as long as the marriage would actually take place within their jurisdiction, kung asa ra sila in jurisdiction. So if taga-Guihulngan ka, dapat ang mayor pas Guihulngan, and sa Guihulngan mo ikasal, so dapat ang mayor pas Guihulngan mo kasal ninyo. And then another one is mga judges are allowed to marry. So again, ang iyong place of marriage is within the jurisdiction ng a judge. And then for the second formal requisite, you need a valid marriage license. So when you say valid marriage license, you have to apply for a marriage license sa ato ang mga munisipyo. So we have the civil registrar dito mo apply sa ato mga munisipyo or sa city hall for you to obtain a valid marriage license, and it's very important. You mentioned an exempt in cases provided for Chapter 2 of this title. I have not actually included that, but it says here, ang kanaganing magpuyo, common law spouses, common law spouses. So basically, if you live in na mo, gapuyo na mo for more than 5 years, you are not actually required to obtain a valid marriage license. So pwede na mo magpakasal, diretso without a valid license, kay you are allowed to do so because that's one of the exceptions provided under Article 3. So basically, those nga nagpuyo na who are not incapacitated to marry each other, so meaning nasa illegal capacity kay there are more than 18 years old and that wala sila giminyo og laing persons before. So because of that, they are feeling nag-live-in na gyud sila kay di pa sa covered magpakasal. So while live-in sila for more than 5 years, then they are not required to provide for a valid marriage license na once they decide sila magpakasal, they enter into marriage. And the third requisite, it says, a marriage ceremony which takes place with the appearance of the contracting parties before a solemnizing officer and their personal declaration that they take each other as husband and wife in the presence of not less than 2 witnesses of legal age. So again, what is important is that there is a marriage ceremony. So wala specified din yung sa klaseng marriage ceremony, as long as there is a marriage ceremony with not less than 2 witnesses. So again, dapat na ay at least 2 witnesses of legal age na a witness sa inyong kasal, and during the ceremony there must be the appearance of the contracting party. So the man and the woman should be present. Dili pwede ang substituted. Dili pwede sa Pilipinas ang substituted marriage, meaning na-aray mo proxy para sa bride or sa groom. Di na pwede because under our laws, we need personal appearance good by the husband and wife during the marriage ceremony, because under the ceremony, they have to declare to each other that they will take each other as husband and wife. Muna kailangan. Under the ceremony, they have to declare that they would take each other as husband and wife, and that's very important. So I mentioned in the previous article the authority of the solemnizing officer. So for Article 7, it has provided for who are those who are authorized to solemnize a wedding or a marriage. First, an incumbent member of the judiciary within the court's jurisdiction. So again, akong gingon mga huwes, judge, basta as long as the marriage would take place within the jurisdiction of the judge. Then any priest, rabbi, imam, or minister of any church, religious sect duly authorized by his church or religious sect and registered with the civil registrar general, acting within the limits of the written authority granted by his church or religious sect, and provided that at least one of the contracting parties belongs to the solemnizing officer's church or religious sect. So basically, muna akong mentioned earlier, ang mga pare or imams or rabbi, depende sa religion. And it's very important, if ever you would contract a church wedding, it is important that at least one of the contracting parties, either the husband or the wife, is a member of that church. So basically, dili pwede nga katoliko ka, and then dito ka magpakasal sa INC, even if ang imuhang minyuan kay dili INC. Dili na pwede. So, ang mga pastors, pwede na sila makasal as long as one of the contracting parties is a member of the church kung asa sila magpakasal. Number 3, any ship captain or airplane chief only in the case mentioned in Article 31. When you say Article 31, it talks about a marriage in articulo mortis, meaning kalamatsun. For example, manag-crash ang plane or palubog na ang barko, then automatically under our laws, the ship captain sa palubog na nga part or ang kapalupad sa plane can actually marry them. That's that's actually allowed under the civil code because it is for marriage and articulum mortis, like wa nagi choice ya kalamatso na ning isa sa contracting parties and needed agis lang magpakasal, then the ship captain or the airplane chief are allowed to do so if ever naa sila anang a ship or anang a plane during that time. Then number 4, any military commander of a unit to which a chaplain is assigned in the absence of the latter during a military operation. Likewise, only in the cases mentioned in Article 32. So again, kaya siya katunining mga naas mga, like for example, sa Marawi, diba, gibombahan man to before. So basically, kung kinsay naa dito, kung if ever ganahan magpakasal ang mga katong mga military nga tuwa dito, then the chaplain, katong military commander nila is allowed to marry them. And then any consul general, consul or vice consul provided in Article 10. So basically, kung consul general, katunan ng mga Philippines of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs or katong mga immigrants nga sa gawas, again, they can be married by our consul generals or those as mentioned in these provisions. So again, these are the only people who are allowed to marry or to solemnize marriage under our laws. So under Article 35, the following marriages shall be void from the beginning. When you say void by the beginning, so meaning wala siya'y bisa. So hindi siya valid because they are against our laws. First, those contracted by any party below 18 years of age, even with the consent of parents or guardians. Again, you need the capacity to be married. And once you are under 18 years old, you don't have the legal capacity to marry yet. So that's why those marriage entered into by minors are considered void. Number 2, those solemnized by any person not legally authorized to perform marriages unless such marriages were contracted with either or both parties believing in good faith the solemnizing officer has the legal authority to do so. So what are this void marriage under the number 2 of Article 35? Those nga katong liba ng the enumeration. So basically, if they don't belong to the enumeration on who are the solemnizing officer who are allowed to solemnize marriage, then what the law does not include, it excludes man. So basically, other persons other than them cannot actually solemnize marriages. So because of that, that marriage is actually void. The only exception, void na siyang marriage. However, the only exception is when the two of them, the man and the woman, would enter into a marriage, and then they would actually sought for the solemnizing officer. They in their own belief, nituo sila nga he has the authority to do so. Then basically, di siya covered ani nga provision. It's only when ganing gituyo ra under this provision, gituyo gyud nila kabalo sila mismo nga there's a defect sa authority sa solemnizing officer, and because of that, that would render their marriage void, because under our laws, only those who have the authority can solemnize marriages. So number 3, those solemnized without license, except those covered the preceding chapter. So again, required ang marriage license if you want to marry. But as I mentioned, those yung katong living in together for more than 5 years, at least 5 years, they don't need a marriage license. And those put marriage in articulum mortis, so meaning kalamatso na ang usa and they needed to be married already, then they also don't need to provide for a marriage license. Pero other than that, if they would enter into marriage and that wala sila marriage license during the time they contracted their marriage, then that marriage is void from the beginning. The number 4, those bigamous or polygamous marriages not fall under Article 41, not falling under Article 41. Kung silti kag bigamous or polygamous, again, naminyo na siya, pero namenyo na po siglain na po, and then minyo. So daghan siya giminyuan. So basically that person does not have the legal capacity at all to marry. So because of that, void iyang marriage kay only the first marriage is recognized under our laws. Once we enter siya into marriage again, then that is already bigamous and he shall be liable for it. And the marriage is actually void. Then number 5, those contracted through mistake of one contracting party as to the identity of the other. That's actually very funny. I mean, pagpakasal ka, I think one of the reasons why you would enter into a marriage is because you love that other person. So basically, hanong nialaw ka to marry that person when that person's identity is not clear for you at all, di ba? So imuha na ng sala ang katanga-tanga ka during the marriage. I mean, posible pong kapausap po. Imposible pong kapausap og naong ng tawahan, di ba? I mean, baka due to plastic surgery is very common now, pero the thing is, you would know if you are marrying that person or not. You would know that the identity of that person that you're about to marry. So basically, muna ng sala, magpangatanga ka, di ba? So yeah. And then number 6, those subsequent marriages that are void. Basically, we still have another batches of those that are considered void marriages. So let's actually continue. Under Article 37, marriages between the following are incestuous and void from the beginning, whether relationship between the parties be legitimate or illegitimate. We will be talking about legitimate and illegitimacy later on. But here, again, these are another form of void marriages. Under Article 37, these are considered as void due to being incestuous. Again, incestuous marriage because between ascendants and descendants of any degree. So meaning ascendants and descendants. So yun si ascendants, ikaw ni. Ascendant, meaning imong mama or papa, or imuhang lolo or lola. If imuhang parents mo ni siya, ascendant ni mo. Pero if napo kay anak po, that is called your descendant. Alam niyo, say degree, kani siya, degree is, ikaw o imong mama is related first degree. Then, ang ikaw o imong lula is first ka sa imong parents, second degree na imong relationship sa imong grandparents. And then sa imong cousins gani sa imong anak nimo first degree collateral man na linya. Then vertical, horizontal ni siya basta igsuon nimo. Vertical, first degree vertical imong parents, vertical nga descendant nimo, first degree nga vertical descendant nimo sa imong anak. So basically, that's how you maghihap og degree mo saka ka sa parents. Ay, second degree na din yung igsuon dahil first degree nimo is imong parents, then musaka ka, and then manaog na po siya sa imong igsuon. That's your second degree. If pag umangkon na nimo, third degree na nimo. If imong cousins, musaka ka sa imong parents, first degree, second degree ang imong lolo ug lola, third degree imong uncle o imong tita, and then fourth degree anak nila imong cousins. So fourth degree imong relationship. So basically, under our laws, basta kay ascendants and descendants of any degree. So basically, di ka incestuous if imong minyon imong mama or imong papa kalod, or imong grandparents, or imong kaugalingong anak or kaugalingong imong apo imong minyon, regardless of unsa nakalayo na. That's actually not allowed. And then under number 2, between brothers and sisters, whether full or half blood. So meaning mag-igsuon, magminyuan, that's very wrong. And that is actually considered as a void marriage. Regardless if half brother or half sister, ani mo kay maigsuon na mo sa mama or maigsuon na mo sa papa. Again, regardless, really, it's actually very wrong. So that's why it's actually considered as a void marriage under Article 37. And then another batch of void marriages. The following marriages shall be void from the beginning for reasons of public policy. Again, due to public policy, this kind of marriages are considered as void. between collateral blood relatives, whether legitimate or illegitimate, up to 4th civil degree. So, I have to gain a 4th collateral. So, meaning collateral pakilid, kaya sakto din collateral pakilid. Aning aside, oh. So, again, up to 4th civil degree. So, what do you mean the 4th civil degree? You have to, 1st degree is with your parents, tapos 2nd degree sa imong lolo o lula, manaog kag 3rd degree sa imuhang tita o tito, and then manaog pa ka 4th degree sa imong cousins. So, di mo pwede mo minyo sa imong cousins because that is considered void. So, if second cousin na ganun na siya mo, saka naman po ka lola lolo, igsuon sa imong lola lolo, manaog na po ka. So, basically, 7 or 6th degree na imong mga second cousin. Pero sa tuwa, 4th civil degree naman. So, basically, kotobra sa imong cousins. So, di ka pwede mo minyo sa imong first cousin. So, kay 4th degree man sila, 4th civil degree. So, you're not allowed to marry them until, or imong tita or tito, yo. Then, the next is between step-parents and their step-children. So, unsa man na? Step-children. Mag-asawa sila. Sila mag-asawa na sila kagalingong mga anak, nagminyo sila. So meaning na stepson na niya or na stepson na niya ang anak sa iyahang giminyuan. So basically kanang anak sa iyang giminyuan di na niya pwede minyuon even if di sila blood related, but then again they are under public policy that kind of marriage is void. And then between parents-in-law and children-in-law. So basically, imong mga in-laws, maminyo ka imong asawa, mamatay imong asawa, imong minyuan imong mother-in-law. Di na pwede. Again, di na pwede under our civil code. That is actually a form of void marriage. Then, between adopting parent and adopting child. So, nakay-adopt nga child, you are not allowed to marry your adopted child because under our civil code, there is actually filiation or relationship that developed or created once you adopt a child. So basically, under our laws, you are seen as the ascendant of the child. You are seen as the parent of the child. So that's why you're not allowed to marry your adopted child, regardless if wala may blood relationship. But under our laws, you have formed and established a relationship with that person. The number 6, between the surviving spouse of the adopting parent and the adopted child. So basically, kanisa ni-adopt ang asawa, may ni-adopt nimo. Tapos namatay ang asawa, so ang bana, labay ka, ang bana niya, minyoon ka. That's not actually allowed. So again, there's actually a relationship that is established. So di po na pwede. And then, between the surviving spouse of the adopted child and the adopter, again, na pwede. And then between an adopted child and the illegitimate child of the adopter. So meaning na illegitimate child na sila anak and then i-adopt ka and then nakaibugay mo, that's actually not allowed. Di mo pwede minyoon because under our civil code, you are technically brothers and sisters. Sibling na nimo, igsuon na nimo. Basically, once na i-adopt sa inyong family, they are considered as your sibling under our law. So basically, that's actually another form of void marriage. And then between the adopted child and the legitimate child of the adopter, and then between the adopted child and the same adopter. So meaning kamunduwa i-adopt mo, kamunduwa mo adopted child, again di po na pwede because you have established the relationship with each other na maigsuon po mo. Sa mata sa ato ang balakod maigsuon mo. So basically di na pwede if imong minyuon ang adopted child sa imuhang sa adopt nimo. And then between parties for one kanang passion gani or the intention gipatay abi imuhang gipatay ni nga person na naibog ani nga person per kani nga person na minyo na siya. So imong gibuhat is gipatay nimo ang giminyuan na nga person for the purpose of marrying kato imong naibkan. Under our laws, that is a form of void marriage. Di na pwede. Because, ano man, ang serious na kipatay kay pararamin yun. Under our civil code, it's actually a form of void marriage due for reasons of public policy. May kung maging ana na lang, if allowed na under our laws, then magsige na lang patay diri sa Pilipinas. Just because other people would be allowed to marriage. So if nga na mahitabo, then daghang magpatay. And that's not good. For the reason of public policy, this kind of marriages are considered as void. So again, these are the void marriages as enumerated under our civil code. So under Article 55 of the Family Code, it talks about legal separation. First, you have to understand what is legal separation first. Legal separation is actually allowed under our laws nga magbulag ang mag-asawa. Pero magbulag ra sila og pagpuyo, but their marriage is not dissolved. So meaning, unsa rin dissolve ang ilang property relationship. So di na sila gapuyo, wala sila gapuyo sa balay, and then their properties are separated from each other. Pero under our laws, mag-asawa ra gyapon sila kay wala na dissolve ang marriage. Only they are allowed to be separated from bed. So mo nilingon, to be separated from bed. Walay na dissolve in legal separation, walay na dissolve nga marriage. Only nagbulag na sila og properties kay na sila misunderstanding with each other or on the following grounds. So basically under Article 25, it has provided for the grounds for a valid legal separation. So again, for a valid legal separation, ang legal separation gani walay marriage nga dissolve. Allowed ra sila nga mag-separate from each other ang mag-asawa, pero di sila technically dissolve ilang marriage. Mag-asawa ra gyapon sila under our laws and they cannot contract a second marriage. Di sila pwede mo enter into a second marriage because they are still a valid marriage that exists between them. Only that ang ilang property relations mo'y na-dissolve. So what are the grounds for a petition for legal separation under Article 55? Number 1, repeated physical violence or grossly abusive conduct directed against a petitioner, a common child, or a child of the petitioner. So meaning, kung kasi ni petition, meaning biktima siya og physical violence, ginabunog siya sige, or kung dili siya yung anak ginabunog sige. So that is a ground for legal separation. Number 2, physical violence or moral pressure to compel the petitioner to change religious or political affiliation. So again, if mamugos ka ng imuhang partner or imong spouse, usbon, imong relihiyon, pugson jud ka. I rather not comment, but yeah, I think we all know that there's a certain religion that would actually, dili pwede mo sugot nga, dili ka mo enter into the religion once you get married. But, you know, freedom. Let's talk about freedom. Again, our forefathers fought for our freedom. And in fact, the Philippines have to go through a lot just to enjoy this freedom. So, you must have your religious and political freedom. So, dapat unta ang imong spouse, dili ka pugson to change your religious and political beliefs in life. So if ever mahitabo na pugsun ka, yan ay pressure, or in fact, bunugon pa dyan ka just to force you to change your religion or your political belief, then you're allowed for legal separation. Pwede mo magbulag, maglahi na mo, puyo, just because of that. Number 3, attempt of respondent to corrupt or induce the petitioner, a common child, or a child of the petitioner to engage in prostitution, or connivance in such corruption or inducement. So again, imong himuong prostitute imong asawa or imuhang anak, or musugot ka nga na mo prostitute sa imuhang asawa or anak. That's not allowed under our law. So basically, pwede mo file for legal separation for that. Number 4, final judgment sentencing the respondent to imprisonment of more than 6 years even if pardoned. So if nakasala under our criminal revised penal code. So basically, guilty siya, he is found guilty, or her, they are found guilty. The spouse is actually found guilty of committing a crime with an imprisonment, a punishment of imprisonment for more than 6 years. That is also a ground for legal separation. Next, drug addiction or habitual alcoholism of the Respondent, again, we always see that around, mga palahubog na kaayo. Hindi na dyan mo kayang pagpuyuan ng person, kaya palahubog, addict, then file for legal separation. Then lesbianism or homosexuality of the respondent. Yeah, legal separation if tomboy, if homophobic ka, di ka dawat, nga tomboy di ay, or bayot ng imuhang naminyuan, then under our laws, pwede na nimo siya, pwede ka mo file for legal separation. And then number 7, contracting by the respondent of a subsequent bigamous marriage, whether in the Philippines or abroad. So basically, it's a criminal offense. Bigamy is a criminal offense. So basically, once gani mabalaan nimo nga you entered into a second marriage without your knowledge, then you can actually you can file for legal separation. That's a ground for legal separation. Number 8, sexual infidelity or perversion. So meaning sexual infidelity. Sige siya, constant iyang having sexual intercourse with another person. Di nga dili ikaw. Again, sexual infidelity, sige siya, having sexual relationship with another person other than you, kana di siya pwede. That's a ground for legal separation or perversion or perversion, like kinky kay kayo in bed, like tagang mga stuff may ipabuhat sa imo. That's actually ground for legal separation. And then number 9, attempt by the respondent against the life of the petitioner. If that person attempted to kill you, patyon ka, then kanang makipagpuyo pa man ka, file for legal separation, move out from that house. That's actually your right. And then number 10, abandonment of the petitioner by the respondent without justifiable cause for more than 1 year. For purposes of this article, the term child shall include a child by nature or by adoption. Abandonment by the petitioner, or abandonment. Nibiya na siya, nilakaw na siya kalit, wa siya nagpabalo sa inyo ata siya niadto, and then wa siya ni-provide og sustento for more than 1 year. So meaning, asam din nipunta din siya, asa siya niadto. So if that's the case, i-abandon mo, wa siya nihatag sustento, wa siya nitabang sa inyong family, then that's actually a ground for legal separation. So why? Ang pugson man nimo, diba? Leave. So under Article 68, the husband and wife are obliged to live together, observe mutual love, respect and fidelity, and render mutual help and support. So first, what are the 3 obligations of the husband and wife? Number 1, to live together. So meaning they have to cohabit. Magpuyo sila. They would live in the same house. But pwede sila to live together. They live separately. Due ka ng mga trabaho gani. They have different places of assignment that's actually allowed. Pero, that's actually allowed. Pero they have to establish a family home kung asa sila together. And then, basta, cohabitation is actually a requirement. Dili pwede nagpakasal mong duwa, and then eventually, ang laki mo puyo sa balay sa iyang mama, ang bahay mo puyo sa balay sa iyang mama. You're not doing your obligation as husband and wife if ever that's the case. So dapat mupuyo dyan mo together as husband and wife. So there is cohabitation required. And then second requirement is to observe mutual love. So meaning love each other, respect each other, and fidelity. And when you say fidelity, meaning loyal siya nimo. Sexual fidelity, sa imuha ra siya makipag-enter into sexual relations. Sa imuha ra siya enter into relationship. Ikaw ra gid yun. That's actually expected for a husband and wife. Di siya pwede mangitaglain, ikaw ra unta. And that's their obligation. And then, next is render mutual help and support. It means, karon gani sa panahon, I think we are at the modern age. Marriage is about 50-50 responsibility. 50% ang responsibility sa asawa, 50% ang responsibility sa bana. So, ang mag-asawa magtabangay sila with each other in order to establish their family home and their family life and in rearing their children. So, very important nga. walay magsalig sa usa't usa. Di ra pwedeng nga uskabo kayo magtrabaho para ninyo. If you are both capable of working, work. Help each other. That's very, very important. Okay? So again, what are the expectations once you become husband and wife? What are your obligations? First, you must live together, cohabit. Second, observe mutual love, respect, and fidelity. Then, third, render mutual help and support. So Article 69, it mentions the husband and wife shall fix the family domicile. In case of disagreement, the court shall decide. The court may exempt one spouse from living with the other if the latter should live abroad or there are other valid and compelling reasons for the exemption. However, such exemption shall not apply if the same is not compatible with the solidarity of the family. Again, here I've mentioned a requirement for a husband and wife is to cohabit because they must live together. So basically, they must establish a family home. So asa man ang balay? They must have their own domicile. O asa sila mapuyo. Basically, if the case is was nagkasinabot kung asa sila pwede mapuyo, the court may actually fix it ang mag-asawa ato sa court, and the court will decide as to where they would be domiciled. That's it. And there are actually exemptions under our laws as to when husband and wife are allowed to live together separately. Like for example, it mentions if mupuyo sa abroad, then of course di mupugson. However, there are times when a wife can actually leave her husband if ever maltreated siya or kanang nangabit ang iyang bana, then the wife is not obliged to live together with the husband. She is justified to leave the family home. And if na violence na involved sa ilahang panagpuyo, then leave. That's very basic, leave. If there's already violence involved, no, di ka dapat magpakamartir na. If you are capable enough of raising your child on your own, then you must leave your family, the family home or your domicile, if ever there's already violence within your home. That's very basic. Again, you can always ask for your support from your husband because he is obliged to give support regardless if you're living separately with each other. But then again, under our laws, it is allowed. There are exemptions granted as to when you shall not live together. So that's for Article 69. So under Article 70, the spouses are jointly responsible for the support of the family. The expenses for such support and other conjugal obligations shall be paid from the community property and in the absence thereof from the income of the fruits of their separate properties. In case of insufficient or absence of said income or fruits, such obligations shall be satisfied from the separate properties. Basically, under this provision, it has been talking about a property relationship between husband and wife. And again, let's not talk about property relationship because property relationship will only be very important once there is dissolution of marriage because there is division of property. So what's the law governing the property relationship? That's the time that we can actually talk about it. But since you are not law students, then let's focus on the very basic the basic provision of Article 70 on support. So basically, who are responsible to support the family? The husband and wife are jointly responsible. So meaning, silang duwa are responsible for the support of their family. Di ra kay usara ka buok, usara sa spouse ang responsible for the support of family. Both, if both spouses should provide support for the family. Di ra kay nang usala. So Article 71 is actually related to Article 70. The management of the household shall be the right and duty of both spouses. The expenses for such management shall be paid in accordance with the provisions of Article 70. So again, management. So yun sa yung pag-manage yung pamalayan sa pagkaon, sa gastuson, tanan, who is in charge. Again, it is the right and duty of both spouses. Again, in a family, di ra usahan dapat mo lihok both of the spouses, both the husband and wife should work together for the proper management of their household. So that's the very essence of Article 71. For Article 72, when one of the spouses neglects his or her duties to the conjugal union or commits acts which tend to bring danger, dishonor, or injury to the other or to the family, the aggrieved party may apply to the court for relief. I think what are the kind of reliefs that you can apply for in the courts? Again, you can always ask for support or legal separation. Or you can ask for custody of the child. So again, these are the kind of reliefs that you can actually obtain from the court whenever ang usa sa imong ang pares nimo kay gineglect iyang duty to the conjugal union. So unsa man ang conjugal duty, wa siya hatag og suporta sa imuha or naa siya trabaho, naa siya kita, pero iyaharang igasto tanan kay ibulang, igamble. Then you can ask the court for relief. So, imo siyang pabayron og support para sa inyong family. Or any act which tends to bring danger or dishonor or injury to the family. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have legal separation. So, once again, na violence involves yung family, the relief that you can ask for under our courts is for legal separation. Para you are allowed to live separately from each other and you can ask for support from the court. So, pabayron. And the courts can provide that the aggrieved party may ask for support from the offending party. So, kinsa to yung offending party, mobayad gyapon siya monthly support even if you're not living together. So, again, the courts, under our civil code, the courts is your friend. Ang korte ay imong friend. Once there are problems with your marital life or your marriage life or in your family, you can always ask the court. You can always ask the court for relief, tabang, sa matabang sa inyuha for better living. So that's for Article 72. So Article 73 of the Family Code says that either spouse may exercise any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity without the consent of the other. The latter may object only on valid, serious, and moral grounds. In case of disagreement, the court shall decide whether or not the objection is proper and benefit has accrued to the family prior to the objection of thereafter. If the benefit accrued prior to the objection, the resulting obligation shall be enforced against the community property. If the benefit accrued thereafter, such obligation shall be enforced against the separate property, and the spouse who has not obtained consent. The foregoing provision shall not prejudice the rights of the creditors who acted in good faith. And this provision basically is all about spouses being allowed to enter into a profession that they want. They should not seek for consent. Dili pwede magbuot ilahang bana nga or mga asawa for them to enter into any kinds of profession or enter into any kind of business or occupation. So basically, consent is not needed from the spouse anymore if they want to enter into a certain profession or occupation or business. Under Article 73, it's only when serious and moral grounds, they can object if these are on serious and moral grounds. Like for example, ang ilang business na is to enter into prostitution. Or for example, invalid siya nga ground just because it would render night shift for the parents, for the spouse, night shift, and then wala siya time for the family. Then, if that's the case, then I think the spouse can object to that occupation. So basically, if there's a disagreement between the two of them as provided for under Article 73, then the court shall decide if whether the obligation, the court shall decide if allowed, the court shall decide if the disagreement is on the disagreement. Okay, it will decide on the disagreement. So it will decide whether the objection is proper and that if naka-benefit ba ang family ani nga trabaho as. Basically, what do you mean benefit if dako sweldo and then because of that profession, nakapatukod mong balay, nakapaskwela mong mga bata, then that is actually being considered under our courts if ever. So basically, if the profession is actually beneficial for the family, then the court would grant that would grant would grant that for the continuance, to continue that occupation or profession. Pero if wala gani nakadaot rag samot, then basically the court would really allow the disagreement, and they would and then they would give it to the spouse. The objection is indeed proper. So first, we have to consider, again, what we need to understand under Article 73 is that spouses are allowed to work. They're allowed to find work or job that they love, and their spouses should not reject it because they don't need any they don't need any consent from their spouses if ever they decide that they want to enter into a certain profession. So that's it for Article 73. So for Article 149, it says here, the family, being the foundation of the nation, is a basic social institution which public policy cherishes and protects. Consequently, family relations are governed by law, and no custom, practice, or agreement destructive of the family shall be recognized or given effect. So as mentioned earlier, the family is a basic social institution. It is the start of, it is the foundation of of our community, the families. So basically, everything starts in a family. A child starts to learn in a family because the parents of the child are the first teachers for the child. So basically, our morals, our values are developed within our family. So basically, that's why it's always being protected under our laws. So as I mentioned earlier, just because you entered into a special contract, which is actually a marriage, you're not actually allowed to stipulate for any regulations that would be destructive to your family, because everything about a family must be governed by our laws. That's why we have the family code, we have the civil code. And, you know, there are no customs or practice or unsa pa klaseng tradition that is seen to be destructive sa atong family is allowed or should be recognized or given effect. They should not be recognized or they should not be given effect. So basically, that's it. You know, family relationship should be governed by laws only. We should not provide for any kind of special conditions once we enter into marriage, because it's only our laws that can govern our marriages, and you cannot personally enter into some kinds of stipulations or any forms of contracts that would be definitely be destructive for the family. So that's it for Article 149. So family relations includes those between husband and wife, between parents and children, and among brothers and sisters, whether full or half-blood. So again, when you say family relations, it means you have established relationship as a family, and thus you have the obligation for each other. And who are this considered to be covered under family relations? So it must be between husband and wife, mag-asawa, between parents and children, between parents and children, so meaning mama, mga ginikanan o anak. And then among brothers and sisters, whether of the full or half-blood, so meaning sa mga mag-igsuon, regardless if mag-igsuon sila sa mama or mag-igsuon sila sa papa, as long as mag-igsuon sila under our laws, they are brothers and sisters, then they are governed by our family relations. Basically, family home. Family home is very important. It is constituted jointly by the husband and the wife or by an unmarried head of the family. It is the dwelling house where they and their family reside and the land of which it is situated. So a family home is always protected, most especially if there's a minor. You cannot actually sell your family home, most especially if there's a minor growing. Anak nga balaya. So basically, it must not be subject to any kanang garnishment gani under the laws, or when you say garnishment under our laws, kada ganing imo siyang himong collateral sa utang and di ka kabayad sa utang, kada yung family home may kuwaon under our laws, di na pwede, most especially if there are minor children. So a family home must be constituted because that's where your children would grow, and that's the sanctuary of your love. So basically, because it's a sanctuary, a family home is always protected. So So a family home is considered as agapuyo ang family og ang di lang ang balay og hasta ang yuta. So again, our family homes must be protected, and each spouses, a husband and wife, must constitute a family home para sa ilang family that would serve as a sanctuary for their children. Affiliation under Article 163, under Article 163, the affiliation of children may be by nature or by adoption. Natural filiation may be legitimate or illegitimate. First, let's talk about filiation of children. What is filiation? When you say filiation, it is about recognizing. Recognizing mo nga anak ni siya, and it's forming relationship as the parent of the child. So you are designated, you become the designated parent of the child, or that you have recognized being the parent of the child. So basically, when you say filiation, it's by nature. When you say nature, imo kagaling ang anak, imong gihimo mismo ang anak, or by adoption, because again, adoption establishes relationship. It establishes relationship between the adopter and the adoptee as parents. So basically, adopted children may call for filiation with their adopted parents. So basically, it's either filiation may be formed through filiation naturally or through adoption. And when you say natural filiation may be legitimate or illegitimate, we'll be talking about legitimate or illegitimate in the following provisions of the Civil Code. So here, when you say, let's talk about legitimate. Children conceived or born during the marriage of the parents are legitimate. Children conceived as a result of artificial insemination of the wife with the sperm of the husband or that of a donor, or both, are likewise legitimate children of the husband and his wife, provided that both of them authorized or ratified such insemination in a written instrument executed and signed by them before the birth of the child. The instrument shall be recorded in the civil registry together with the birth certificate of the child. So here is legitimate. How to establish legitimate relationship? Basically, you only need marriage. If your parents are married, or the husband and wife are married, automatically tanan nilang anak during that marriage are considered as legitimate children. So they are legitimate children, conceived, natural children, gihimo gid sila mismo, born during marriage. So if gikasal na sila, tanang anak sa mag-asawa are considered legitimate children. And in fact, under Article 164, it recognizes, it's actually very modern, as it recognizes artificial insemination. So basically, but as long as it's the sperm of the husband and the egg of the wife that is being used to conceive the child, regardless if it's through artificial insemination, then eventually, panganak sa bata, then that child is still considered as a legitimate child, because that child is born under a legal marriage of the husband and wife. So again, legitimacy is when you are considered a legitimate child when your parents are actually married. And then for Article 165, children conceived and born outside a valid marriage are illegitimate unless otherwise provided in this code. Kani siya, under 165, we're talking about illegitimate children. So when you say illegitimate children, these are children nga, like for example, kaning lakihan na minyo aning asawa, aning bayhana. But before siya nagminyo, na siya anak sa laing bayi. So that child, nawa man sa naminyo atong bayhana. So that child, hindi pa anak sa ilaha, that child of that guy is actually considered as the illegitimate child of the husband. And if ever pod na apoy kaning iyang wife, na ako siya anak pod outside their marriage, then that's the illegitimate child of the wife pod. Kaya wa man siya ikasal. So any child born outside of wedlock are considered as legitimate children, as provided for under Article 165 of the Civil Code. So Under Article 174, these are the right of the legitimate children. So first, to bear the surnames of the father and the mother in conformity with the provisions of the Civil Code on surnames. Basically, yeah, you have to carry, okay, legitimate child, they have to carry the surname, mga apelido sa papa. That's actually a right. However, there's actually a certain jurisprudence now under the Supreme Court that children are actually not obliged, even if legitimate, their parents, they are legitimate children and their parents are married. The children are not actually obliged to carry the name of their fathers, so they can also carry the name of their mothers. Again, to bear, it's actually just a right. So nakikatungod to bear the surname of your father, but if you don't want to, then don't. You can always carry the surname of your mother, as provided for in a jurisprudence by the Supreme Court. Another right of a legitimate child is to receive support from parents, their ascendants, and in proper cases, their brothers and sisters in conformity with the provisions of this code on support. We'll be talking about support later. But yeah, you have to receive support from your parents. If wala na kay parents, then your other ascendants, like your grandparents, or there are some cases wherein wala na kayo po mga ascendants, then you have your brothers and sisters that will take care of you. Then they should provide a support, and we will be talking more about this later. Then the third right of a legitimate child is to be entitled to the legitimate and other successional rights granted to them by the Civil Code. So we say successional rights, if ever mamatay ilang parents, then they have the right to succeed with the properties of their parents. So basically, when you say it's a property, then it would be divided. The successional, the Civil Code provided for provisions on how to divide the property of an ascendant once that ascendant would actually die. So saan mo na pag-divide yung property for the sake of their children, successional rights of the children, that it has been provided, and the legitimate child will always have the right to inherit. So for Article 176, it has provided for the rights of an illegitimate child. So an illegitimate child shall use the surname and shall be under the parental authority of their mother, because most of the time, ang illegitimate child kaya always good with their mother. However, and they shall be entitled to support in conformity with our Civil Code. However, illegitimate children may use the surname of their father. So, pwede siya kagamit actually. They can use the surname of their father if they want to, as long as filiation has been expressly recognized by the father. So, giila siya recognize ang bata as child of the father. So, basically, filiation has been established. So, if there's filiation that has been established, then that child can actually carry the surname of the father. And here, it has provided that the father has the right to institute an action before the regular courts to prove the non-filiation during his lifetime. Giila na niya, but eventually, nabalaan niya, di niya anak, then he has the right during his lifetime. So, minsan buhi pa siya, the father can prove non-filiation. So, pwede niya ma-disown ang kanang child if ever di na niya good anak. And then, the legitimate of each legitimate child shall consist one half of the legitimate of a legitimate child. When you say legitim, when you say legitim, it's actually the division under successional rights. When you say successional rights, a legitimate child and a legitimate child both have the rights to inherit from their parents, from their father, if ever. However, a legitimate child will is allowed to inherit a full nga division. Well, only one half of that, kung pila yung manahon sa legitimate child, half raan na ang pwede manahon sa illegitimate child. That's under our laws. So when you say legitimate, that's actually the division of the inheritance. So our Civil Code has provided for how to divide the property of a deceased. So if ever na namatay and then his property, i-divide na siya, and the division is called legitimate. So there's a legitimate for the spouse, surviving spouse, and there's a legitimate for the legitimate children. And one half, the enam's illegitimate, and one half of the legitimate children will actually go to the would be one half sa ilang legitimate would be the legitimate for the illegitimate child. So that's actually very very complicated. The legitimate or successional rights is actually very complicated because there's a lot of things to consider. So again, let's not talk about it because you're not law students. Let's give it to them, to our lawyers. We're just talking here. We're just giving you basic information as to how much legitimate and illegitimate children would actually inherit from their parents. So yeah, again, illegitimate children will carry the surname of their mother. However, affiliation is proved by their father, then they can always carry the surname of their father if ever. So that's their right as illegitimate child. So Article 177, 178, and 179 should be read together. So first, Article 177, children who conceived and born outside of wedlock of parents who at the time of the conception of the former were not disqualified by any impediment to marry each other, or were so disqualified only because either of both of them were below 18 years of age, may be legitimated. And then Article 178, legitimation shall take place by the subsequent valid marriage between the parents. The annulment of avoidable marriage shall not affect the legitimation. Then legitimated children shall enjoy the same rights as legitimate children. So about Article 177, it talks about those children yung gipanganak outside the marriage. However, outside the marriage, yung gipanganak kay meaning mga bata pa sila at nga time. Diba? They were below 18 years old. Pero, or was sila nag-asawa, like they're not, or below 18 years old pa, or more than 18 years old na sila, pero wala sila nag-asawa kahit wala pa kwarta. Pero they are legal, they have the legal capacity to marry each other because the Islam ninyo sila yung tao, and that they're already more than 18 years old. Pero wala lang sila nag-asawa just because, wala sila nag-asawa just because kay wala pa sila kwarta during that time. Basically, those children are considered as illegitimate children. However, upon the subsequent marriage, if magpakasal na ganyan sila gani, kay katong 18 years old, nabot na of age na sila, or katong mag-asawa, kay na sila kwarta, magpakasal, then automatically their children are considered as legitimated. They're called legitimated children. So, because they are legitimated children, then they can already enjoy the rights as provided for, kata earlier, we discussed those rights of the legitimate children. So they are considered as legitimate children. So that's what they call legitimated. Kay tungod, gipanganak sila outside, wala pa gikasal ang ilang parents. However, during the marriage, usap pa sila. However, eventually, nagpakasal man ng parents, then they are already considered as legitimated because they are technically legitimate children of those parents. Only nga kasal lang kulang nila. So, those children will enjoy the kind of rights, the same rights as legitimate children as provided for under this code. So now we're already talking about support. As I mentioned earlier, I will be talking about support. So under Article 194, it talks that support comprises everything indispensable for sustenance: dwelling, clothing, medical attendance, education, and transportation, in keeping with the financial capacity of the family. The education of the person entitled to be supported, referred to in the preceding paragraph, shall include his schooling or training for some profession, trade, or vocation, even beyond the age of majority. Transportation shall include expenses in going to and from school or to and from place of work. So this is actually support. When you say support, then you provide for everything indispensable for sustenance, para makakaon, everything for sa inyong maayong pagpuyo, dwelling, inyong clothing, maayong pananhina, medical attendance, if may magkasakit, dapat mag-providean sila enough medicine or mga dala sa hospital, education and transportation, makaskwela ang mga bata og tarong or makatravel sila in keeping with the financial capacity of the family. So again, financial support would only depend on the financial capability sa mag-asawa. Dili mo pugson nga pugson kay gamay ra ang sweldo, di mo sila pugson nga mogasto og dako. You can't ask your parents to send you to very expensive schools just because di ka sila ka-afford. Again, the support should depend on the financial capacity of the family. As long as ipakaon mo sakto, namoy balay mapuy-an nga tarong, and you have gipasaninaan mo tarong, giprovidean mo mga tambal, o gipa-eskwela mo, then that's actually already a form of support. And here in Article 194, you have to consider nga parents are actually not their support for the education of the children should never stop, even if 18 years old na ilang mga bata. Again, their support will never stop, most especially for education. For education, di na mo stop ang support sa family, even if of age na beyond the age of majority na ang bata. So more than 18 years old na mo yung kaay, kay 18 na ni, stop na og support for education. No. Under our Civic Code, you are still required to give support for education, even if more than 18 years old na ang bata. And then when we say transportation, it says here it shall include expenses going to and from school or to and from place of work. So basically, transportation, that's so very important, and that's also a form of support. So again, that's the support as provided, very basic support, as long as walay mga batang magutman, walay batang gitugnaw, o walay batang dili kay eskwela, then that's actually then again, support, that's very important. Support is very important in for rearing our children in every family, and that's the obligation of parents. Under Article 105, so subject to the provisions of the succeeding articles, the following are obliged to support each other to the whole extent set forth in the preceding article. So I mentioned it earlier. It's not only that the parents should provide support, so basically the spouses, they should provide support for each other. Then number 2, legitimate ascendants and ascendants. So basically, ascendants and ascendants, so mga parents o ilang anak, ilang hatagan og support. And then third, parents and their illegitimate children and their legitimate and illegitimate children of the latter. So basically, ang mga illegitimate children are also allowed to be given support, or they should be provided with support too. And number 4, parents and their illegitimate children and the illegitimate and illegitimate children of the latter. So basically, the parents and their illegitimate children, so and ang parents o ang ilang anak sa illegitimate nila, and then ang ilang mga apo, ang legitimate and illegitimate children sa ilang illegitimate children, then they can provide support for anak. So on 3 and 4, it's like parents to their children, and then ang apo nila, they can provide support to their grandchildren. And then for number 5, legitimate brothers and sisters, whether full or half blood. So meaning, ang mga may igsuon should provide support for each other. So even if half-blood plus lang ang may igsuon, kay igsuon na sa mama or igsuon sa papa, as long as they're legitimate brothers and sisters, then they are also obliged to support each other. So that's again under Article 105 of this code. Basically, under 211, it says here that father and the mother shall jointly exercise parental authority over the persons of their common children. In case of disagreement, the father's decision shall prevail unless there is judicial order to the contrary. Children shall always observe respect and reverence towards their parents and are obliged to obey them as long as the children are under parental authority. So when you say parental authority, so kinsay dapat masunod, and it's always that the parents should have authority over their children. So basically, they should provide for their family, and at the same time, parents and the children should musunod sa ilang parents. And under this provision, if there is disagreement, musukot ang mama, musukot ang papa, or unsa ba, it's the decision of the father that would always prevail kung kansay ilang ganahan. So basically, under this provision, it's always the decision of the father that would prevail. However, they can always go to our courts and and settle that disagreement between the two of them. So again, the court can actually provide can actually decide as to who has better parental authority if ever there are disagreements between the mother and the father. So it also, under Article 211, it also talks about that children should respect and pay reverence towards their parents and obey them. So again, under our laws, nanon sa itong balaod nga mo, sunod kita sa atong mga parents at all times. So dapat respetuhon sila, dapat we revere to them, and then we must obey them because they have parental authority over us. So sila mag-vote because they know what's the best for us, ang mga children. So under Article 214, it says that in case of death, absence, or unsuitability of the parents, substitute parental authority shall be exercised by the surviving grandparents. In case several survive, the designated by the court, taking into account the same consideration mentioned in the preceding article, shall exercise authority. Under this case, it talks about neglect, parents who neglect their children or who abandon their children. So under our laws, if parents would abandon their children, then it's the grandparents who would have substitute parental authority. Pero under this provision, if there are more than one surviving grandparents, then it will be the court who will decide as to who will have substitute parental authority. So again, once gani mag-neglect ilang parents in their obligations or that they cannot provide for, or namatay sila both, or they cannot provide for parental authority because they are unsuitable, then it's their grandparents, ang parents aning the grandparents who has the substitute parental authority. And if ever daghan pa, then the court will decide as to who will have parental authority. So Article 215, it says no descendants shall be compelled in a criminal case to testify against his parents and grandparents, except when such testimony is indispensable in a crime against the descendant or by one parent against the other. Basically, it talks about you cannot be compelled as a witness against your parents or your grandparents in a criminal case. So basically, if nakapatay na imong parents or your grandparents or kasala sila or they have done something wrong, you cannot be used, even if nakita ka, you were really a witness to that crime, you cannot be used as a witness against your grandparents. It's not allowed. You have the right not to be used as a witness because it's provided for under our laws. However, if the crime is involved is between your parents, between the two of them, ang mama o ang papa gapatsanay sila, or between the descendant, or between sa imuhang maigsoon or sa imong parents, then you can do so. Okay? That's a family affair, and you are allowed to become a witness of that. However, other than that, you cannot be used as a witness against your parents or your grandparents. Remember that. You cannot be used as a witness against your grandparents or your parents. So here we have the substitute and special parental authority under Article 216. In default of parents or judicially appointed guardian, the following person shall exercise substitute parental authority over the child in the order indicated. So when you say in the order, so dapat mo siya i-follow yun. The first is a surviving grandparent. If naapay surviving grandparent. If wala, then go to the oldest brother or sister over 21 years of age unless unfit or disqualified. If wala ganin number 2, the oldest brother or sister, then go to the child's actual custodian over 21 years of age unless unfit or disqualified. So if the child is taken into custody by someone basta over 21 years old, then that person, custodian can actually have parental authority over the child. But whenever the appointment or a judicial guardian over the property of the child becomes necessary, the same order of the preference shall be observed. So when you say if ever mamatay sa mga dato ra pud ni, actually kani siya nga last provision, last sentence sa mga dato. So if ever naay property then the child is not yet capable of managing that property, then the court will appoint a judicial guardian for the custody of those property. So basically, who will be given authority over this property, then we will also still follow this provision kung kinsa sila. So again, it's in this order that we should follow. So first, there must be a grandparent or wala ang grandparent and the oldest sibling or wala ang actual custodian. So Article 218, this is actually very important for you, most especially that you are future teachers, and you have to remember this again. The school, its administrators and teachers, or the individual entity or institution engaged in child shall have special parental authority and responsibility over the minor child while under their supervision, instruction, or custody. Authority and responsibility shall apply to all authorized activities, whether inside or outside the premises of school, entity, or institution. So, under this provision, if ever, pila naman po na po, like, during the day, if ever, the children are already in the custody of the teachers or under nanas of the school, within the school premises, then the authority or those persons who has responsibility over them or those who have parental authority over them are already the schools and the teachers. So if ever nanas yung premises, then you have the special parental authority over these children. So you need to be responsible with them if ever they are already in the school premises and you are already in the custody of them. So this parental authority, special parental authority, would also apply whenever there are school activities inside or outside the institution. So if mag-field trip mo, then you still practice parental authority over these children. So that's it. That's actually very important. Again, under our civil code, you have special parental authority over these children once these children are already under your custody. So within school premises na sila and within school hours or during weekend, then you have parental authority over these children. So you are responsible for anything that would happen to them. So under Article 219, it says here that those given the authority and responsibility under the preceding article shall be principally and solidarily liable for damages caused by the acts or omissions of the unemancipated minor. The parents, judicial guardians, or the person exercising substitute parental authority over said minor shall be subsidiarily liable. The respective liabilities of those referred to in the preceding paragraph shall not apply if it is proved that the exercise proper diligence required under the particular circumstances. All other cases not covered by this and the preceding article shall be governed by the provisions of the Civil Code on quasi-delicts. Okay, talk about this. It says here that you, teachers, are actually given special authority over those unanticipated minors, mga children. So if ever when they are under your care and they do something, they do damage, they cause damage, you will be held liable for these damages. You are principally and solidarily liable for these damages. So basically, kaya di man kabayad ng mga bata, kamo mo'y makabayad aning damages caused unto them because it happened during your authority. However, parents are subsidiarily liable. However, if it is proven, during the investigation, if it is proven that you exercise due diligence, and when you say proper diligence, it says the diligence required for a good father of a family, then if that's the case, then you are not more liable to pay for damages if you have exercised due diligence to it. However, again, if you do not exercise due diligence and during your care or during your custody, mga cause of damage or injury ang kaning mga bata under your custody, then you will be held liable for it. You will be liable for damages. So, makabayad mo damages. So, you need to be careful. You need to be responsible over these children under your care and under your custody. Because once gani na matabo sa ilaha, all the damages that has been caused should be borne by you. You will be carrying this responsibility and you will be paying these damages. So under 356, what is it written here? It says that every child, number one, is entitled to parental care. So meaning dapat alagaan sila or arugaon sila sa ilang mga parents. Second, shall receive at least elementary education. Actually, under our laws, your right to education is until high school. So basically, pero under the civil code, at least elementary education. So all children must receive at least elementary education. So you need to graduate. Our children should need to be educated in elementary. And then number 3, shall be given moral and civic training by the parents or guardian. So again, you develop them morally. You give them values. You talk about values and formation to these children, and they have to be trained how to live like a civil person in their country. So what are their rights and obligations as Filipino citizens, and what are their obligations to their country? So if that's the case, then it's the responsibility of the parents to give that to their children. And then number 4, has the right to live in an atmosphere conducive for his physical, moral, intellectual development. So basically, kung unsa yung mga needs sa mga bata, dapat mahatag na siya. And then in the living environment, dapat dili hugaw, dapat limpyo, and then dapat walay abuses nga makita ang mga bata. They should live in a safe space, in a safe environment for them and for their intellectual development. So inyuha siya tabangan sige nga makaton, eskwela magtuon. Again, that's the right. Every children has the right to it. And then, unsay obligation sa mga children, unsa may ilang dapat buhaton. First, they must obey and honor his parents or guardian. Again, mutahod, matinahawron sa ilahang parents or sa taong gabuhi nila. Second, respect his grandparents, all relatives, or persons holding substitute parental authority. So, respetoon ang iyahang mga grandparents, lolo-lola, old relatives, and those who are holding parental authority. And then exert his utmost for his education and training. Again, give effort in education and training. So tanan, sa mo pa eskwela, dapat mo hatag ka sa imong best. That's actually required for you under our civil code. Then 4, cooperate with the family in all matters that make for good of the same. And then every parent and every person holding substitute parental authority shall see to it that the rights of the child are respected and his duties complied with, and shall particularly by precept and example imbue the child with high-mindedness, love of country, veneration for the national heroes, fidelity to democracy as a way of life, and attachment to the ideal permanent world peace. So under Article 358, our children are actually taught how to become, this is actually a form of civic training for them. So basically, you have the responsibility for your community and you have the responsibility to your country. So that's also an obligation for the parents on how to train, how to provide civic training for our children. So PD 603, or the Child and the Youth Welfare Code. This law is actually promulgated by then President Ferdinand Marcos, and the main aim of this law is actually to provide better lives for our children. But I think some provisions of this law has been already repealed or amended by the Juvenile Justice Act, or the one that we have discussed under our revised penal code and other special penal laws. But then again, it has provided for several rights for our children, and these are actually very important. And I think if I ask you to somehow give a demonstration as to the rights of a child, and these are actually very basic and very understandable. So under PD 603, what are the rights of the child? So let's proceed with Article 3. Let's say rights of the child. First, all children shall be entitled to the rights herein set forth without distinction as to legitimacy or illegitimacy, sex, social status, religion, political antecedents, and other factors. So again, each children should enjoy these rights regardless kung unsa pa sila. legitimate ba sila or legitimate, kung sa baye ba sila or laki, ilang social status, kinabuhi, pobre ba or dato, or sa ilang relihiyon, or sa ilang gituan ng political beliefs. Again, regardless of that, they must be able to enjoy these rights provided for them. So what are the rights under PD 603? Number 1, every child is endowed with the dignity and worth of a human being from the moment of his conception, as generally accepted in the medical parlance, and has therefore the right to be born well. Basically, as mentioned earlier, katatong ingon, you are considered as to be born upon conception. So basically, you already have personality upon conception. So dapat gani, samtang napakasulod sa tiyan sa imong parents, you should already be protected because ikaw nanunta kay dignidad and worth as a human being. So that's why abortion is a very big no-no in our country. Because upon conception of a child, upon conception na purma na ka, you are already protected under our laws. You must be endowed with dignity and worth as a human being because you are already considered as human the moment that you are conceived. And that is actually a right of a child under Article PD1. Under Article 3 of PD 603. The number 2, what is the second right? Every child has the right to a wholesome family life that will provide him with love, care and understanding, guidance and counseling, and moral and material security. So the dependent or abandoned child shall be provided with a near substitute for a home. So under this provision, unsa man, unsay katungod sa bata to live in a wholesome family life. And when you say wholesome family life, unsay naa dira na I love, na I care, na I understanding, na I guidance and counseling, and moral and material security. So dapat palanggaon ang mga bata, maka-feel sila nga gihigugma sa silang parents, understanding ginasabot sila kay of course our children have needs. So because of that needs, they must be understood. And then, they must be always guided and they must be counseled. If makasala sila, dapat imusuktihan ang silang sayop. So that eventually, as they grow older, they will realize that these things are actually wrong and they must do something in order to correct the wrongs that they have committed. So basically, that's part of a wholesome family. And then, moral and material security. So, ilahang moralidad shall be protected. Their morality, so they must not be subjected to any kind of form that would actually destroy their morality or kanang mawala ng morality. So basically, they must be protected. And then, a dependent or abandoned child or katong mga abandoned gabiyaan na or those foundlings shall be provided with the nearest substitute for a home. So unsa man na, we have our orphanage, or they can find people who should take care of them. So we have the Department of Social Welfare and Development that would actually provide this that care for them. And then for the next article, it says that every child has a right to a well-rounded development of his personality to the end that he may become happy, useful, and active member of the society. The gifted child should be given the opportunity and encouragement to develop his special talents. The emotionally disturbed or socially maladjusted child shall be treated with understanding and should be entitled to treatment and competent care. Under this provision, under number 3, first, you have to understand that the child has a right to a well-rounded development, or say, holistic development sa iyang personality. You must develop his personality so that unsa may ends ay iyang gibutang diri. The ends may be meet. So unsa, what kind of ends, or what are the goals? Hanong man kailangan kita to develop holistically a child? We need to develop holistically a child because we want the child to become happy, malipayon, yung kinabuhi, then useful. Dapat na siya pulos sa our society. Hindi siya pwedeng ba ng hubog-hubog na naradas kilid, wala pulos, hindi mo trabaho. So that's why you need to develop the child well-roundedly para mahimo siyang useful and active member of the society. So that's why it's very important to educate your children. because again, eventually it's with education that that child would find his own happiness in life, and he would follow this happiness in order to become even more happy in life. So basically, that's why we need to develop our children holistically. So di sa dapat puros eskwela ratanan. They must be able to be free in doing what they love, in developing their talents, their skills, because that would actually make them happy, and that would actually make them useful and active member of the society. So again, a gifted child should be given the opportunity to encourage and to develop a special talent. So if the child has a gift, then find an institution that would develop the talent of the child or the skill of the child even more. And then those who are emotionally disturbed or katong mga gipang abuso ng mga bata, then they should be treated accordingly. So dapat you should provide better treatment for these children if ever they are mentally disturbed or maladjusted. So that's actually the right of our children. And the next, every child has the right to a balanced diet, adequate clothing, sufficient shelter, proper medication, and all the basic physical requirements of a healthy and vigorous life. So sa iyang right, balanced diet na makaon siya 3 times a day, and healthy because what is provided is not to eat 3 times a day. What is provided is a balanced diet, a healthy diet that will make the child healthy. Then adequate clothing, again sa rinaan siya eksakto. Sufficient shelter, so naa siya bubong matulugan, hindi siya mainitan o di po siya mabugnawan. Then proper medical attention, kung magkasakit siya, hatagan siya mga tambal or doon siya sa hospital, ipa-check up. And all the basic physical requirements of a healthy and vigorous life. Again, health, under number 4, health is very important. So they must be provided with anything that is useful for the health of the child. Then, every child has the right to be brought up in an atmosphere of morality and rectitude for the enrichment and strengthening of his character. So again, they develop the character of a child. So first, there must be moral development so that matabangan siya. And when say morality, then it includes values, it includes religion, it includes morals or whatever it is that is needed for a child to be developed with the right kind of mindset in order to become a better individual with so much respect and love for his surroundings. So that's actually very important. And then number 6, every child has the right to an education commensurate with his abilities and to development of his skills for the improvement of his capacity for the service to himself and to his fellow men. So meaning, kung unsay capacity sa child, then ihatag sa iya. If that child is actually very intelligent, that we have science high schools and science elementary classes that would provide better care and understanding to his needs. So because of that, that should be provided for our children. Kaya dapat, kung unsay iyang ability, dapat pud mo commensurate ang atong i-provide sa iya nga tabang or development or training for the child so that maximize iyang full potential and he'll be able to help himself and he'll be able to help other people through that skill or talent that we're trying to improve with that child. Then 7, every child has the right to full opportunities for safe and wholesome recreation and activities, individual as well as social, for the wholesome use of his leisure hours. You say wholesome, wholesome. So basically, opportunities for safe and wholesome recreation and activities. So meaning, dapat makadula siya, happy siya, makadula-dula o anything. Say wholesome. Wholesome is within the norms, within the bounds of our values and our virtues. So if ever we see nga iyang ginadula, di naging maayo gani, kay di wa nakatabang sa iyahang pag-develop sa iyahang attitude or sa iyang character as a person, then that is not considered wholesome. Then that needs to be stopped, because what we need are wholesome recreation and activities that would allow him to develop in order to become a better person and to have a better relationship with other people. So that's actually very needed, and that's actually the right of every child, a wholesome recreation and activities. Then under number 8, every child has the right So protection against exploitation, improper influences, hazards, and other conditions, circumstances prejudicial to his physical, mental, emotional, social development. Under his supervision, our children must be protected at all times from any kind of exploitation. So again, I think this has been provided under our revised penal code, that our children should not be subject to exploitation, to any kind of, seduction, or, those kinds of things. Because they must live in a very wholesome environment. They must be protected at all times, so that we must consider the conditions or circumstances around that child, so that there's proper development to that child physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. Again, well-rounded. We need a well-rounded development to our children, and it's in the environment of the children that would help them develop, and help them in their development. So that's why they must be protected against any kind of exploitation or other influences or hazards, or anything na makadaot sa ilaha should be ipalayo sa ilaha, because again, that's we need to develop our children well-roundedly. And then number 9, it says here that every child has the right to live in a community and society that can offer him an environment free from pernicious influences and conducive to the promotion of his health and the cultivation of these desirable traits and attitude. So again, kung sa iyang kailangan, live in a community and society that environment free from pernicious influences and conducive to the promotion of his health and cultivation of these desirable traits and attributes. So basically, dapat importante ang community nga tubuan sa bata. Dapat di siya exposed of any forms of crimes, di siya exposed of kanang mga garbage or toxic or pollution, and that child should see only what is good in our life, and that's why only good dapat yung makita in our community are only good things. So that's why it's very important that the society and the community where the child is living is actually very wholesome. Again, balik-balik na ng wholesome. That's actually needed for every child. Magsugod ta sa community kung asa siya katubo, because that would treat that child, what he sees in his community would actually have an influence in when he grows up. So basically, that's why kanyang environment should be free from any pernicious influences, so that yung health, he will live healthily, grow up in good health. At the same time, unsa iyang mga traits and attributes, ma-cultivated na dito ta mo-focus sa iyang good traits and attributes, so that that child would grow up, become a better person in our society. And then number 10, every child has the right to the care, assistance, and protection of the state, particularly when his parents or guardians fail or unable to provide him with fundamental needs for growth, development, and improvement. So again, under this provision, our state, or our government, must be able to provide the care and need, and the proper assistance and proper care and proper protection for our children. That's why we have laws that would protect our children, and we have different projects and programs from the various departments of our government to provide for assistance and care for our children, because that's very important. Most especially so if under this provision, if the parents of these children cannot provide because they're negligent. So it's the state or the government that has the responsibility to take care of our children. So again, our government needs to protect our children, so they must provide for anything that can help them. And then number 11, it says here, every child has the right to an efficient and honest government that will deepen his faith in democracy and inspire him with the morality of the constituted authorities, both in their public and private lives. So meaning our government must always set an example, because that is actually a right, an efficient, honest example that deepen his faith in democracy. So if every day the child would see the bad things that our government will be doing, then if that is the only thing that he will see, then he will lose faith in democracy. He will not believe in democracy anymore. And that's actually very sad because, again, we must enjoy the blessings of democracy. We must enjoy the blessings of our freedom under our Philippine Constitution. So our children must be shown how to enjoy this. And it's our government who has been given the obligation to let them see what kind of community or government we are living with. So with that, our government must always be efficient and honest at all times so that our children would emulate this kind and they would be inspired to live this kind of life for them to become better leaders in the future since they are the future of our country. That's very important. Our government must always set example for them. That's why our government leaders should not say yawa or pamisti or say payaw. Because that's not a very good example to our children, honestly. So again, our government must set example for our children under this provision because it is their right. They have the right to an efficient and honest government. And lastly, the last is every child has the right to grow up as a free individual in an atmosphere of peace, understanding, tolerance, and universal brotherhood, and with determination to contribute in building a better world. So under this provision, again, to become free, to enjoy freedom as provided for our Constitution. That's why he must enjoy all his rights, and all his rights as provided for not only by our Constitution, but also on our laws in this. Because that's the kind of life that he should be living. There must be peace and understanding and tolerance and universal brotherhood because it's very important for us to live in the future, for us to build a peaceful environment or a peaceful society. It must start with how we treat our children or what our children will see in their environment. If they would always see peace, then they would become peace-loving citizens of our country. They would be more understanding on the rights of other people. They would be more tolerant to the rights of other people and to become more tolerant to the preferences of other people. And that's the only way to build very good, better citizens of our country. If they would grow up seeing what is good and what is right, because that's their right to live in a better world, and we must provide a better world for them. So we must do it so that the children will see that we are trying to build this kind of world so that someday they would continue to build a better world for everyone. And that is actually their right to live in a better world, and we must create a better world for them. For general duties, I think we have already been talking about it. Like parents have the duties and responsibilities for their children from the civil code to our family code. So just to enumerate, as mentioned here, to give affection, companionship, and understanding. And then to extend him the benefits of moral guidance, self-discipline, and religious instruction. Again, that's self-explanatory. To supervise his activities, including his recreation. That's actually duty put sa atong parents to see to it that they must be guided in whatever they're doing, and then to inculcate him the value of industry, thrift, and self-reliance. This is actually very important. Industry, so dapat industry, thrift, and self-reliance. So industry, so meaning masaligan sila to hardworking, and then thrift. They say thrift, they should know how to save. Self-reliance, dapat on their own, they can do things on their own already. And then to stimulate his interest in civic affairs, teach him the duties of citizenship, and develop his commitment to his country. So again, we mentioned it earlier. And then to advise him properly on any matter affecting his development and well-being. To always set a good example. That's very important. And to provide him with adequate support as provided in our civil code, and to administer his property. So again, property that is already provided for under the provisions of our civil code. So again, these are the general duties of parents. And then for reading habit should be cultivated in the home. So again, that's actually the responsibility of parents. Yeah? Now, our children should develop a reading habit because it's through reading that they're able to widen their imagination and be able to become more creative in life. So parents shall, whenever possible, provide a child with good and wholesome reading material, taking into consideration his age, emotional development. They shall guard against introduction in the home of pornographic and unwholesome publications. So again, kaya mga binastos, dapat bantayan as mga parents. Parents have the duty to inspect on what their child is reading, not only through books but also in cell phones, because they have the obligation to do so. Our children should only need wholesome material, something that would be educational, that would help them learn. So that's the things that we must be able to provide for our children. And then Article 52, association with other children. Parents shall encourage the child to associate with other children of his own age, with whom he can develop common interests of useful and salutary nature, and it shall be their duty to know the child's friends and their activities and to prevent him from falling into bad company. The child should not be allowed to stay out of late at night to detriment his health, studies, and more. So under Article 52, it says here that our children should be able to socialize with other children. They must need to associate because it would help them develop. You need for them to build better relationships. They must be able to associate with other people so that they would better be developed as better citizens. So they need how to build better relationship, makipagkonsens, makikisig katawo. And those are things are very important in the development of a child. A child should have a friend, should be at the company of other children. So that's why they need to be associated with other children. So that's the duty of our parents to allow our children to associate with other children. But at the same time, they must know who are these people, the background of these people, because our children must not fall into bad company. So those mga bad influences, influence sila into taking drugs and doing things and other stuff. So that's actually not, so that's actually the duty of our parents, that they should know also who are these people who are in association with our children. That's actually very important. And again, they should not stay out late at night. So basically, paulit lang sa'yo, mag-usap sa gabi, and it's very dangerous. Darkness is a very dangerous place. It's a very dangerous place. So basically, ang mga children, muli sila so that they would sleep early, they would study, or do things that are very important to them during night. So basically, that's also the duty of their parents. Nga dili palaagod ang mga bata kung gabi. And then, under Article 71, admission to schools, the state shall see to it that no child is refused admission in public schools, or parents are required to enroll their children in schools to complete at least an elementary education. So under our rights, actually, our rights is actually to, I've been mentioning it, under our laws, really elementary education, but secondary education. It's very important for our children. It's actually the right of our children to complete secondary education, but at least at minimum, but as provided for under this provision, ang minimum nga set sa itong children is to study elementary education, and that's actually the responsibility of the parents nga pasulti on. So required, obligated, everyone should study elementary, at least elementary. And then again, schools, di magpili, you should not refuse enrollment. So, na magpa-enroll sa eskwelahan dawata, because that's the right of every children. That's the right of all our children to be educated in the schools that they want. And in our public schools, if you are teaching in public schools, you must accept our children. You must not refuse enrollment. And then under Article 76, role of the home, so the home shall fully support the school in the implementation of the total school program, curricular and co-curricular, toward the proper physical, social, intellectual, and moral development of the child. So again, ang atong mga isikabalay, or say home, is actually the family. They should support the school in the school program. So mga curricular and extracurricular activities, kaya mga activities pilahan, our school, our home should, or our family should support those kind of activities because it's for your proper development. It's not all the time that you should read. It's not all the time that you should study, but you must be provided with activities where you can further expand your knowledge, further develop your talent and skills. And these kind of activities are very important. So if ever there are these kinds of activities, then your family and those who are in your home must support our schools for it. So that ends our discussion for Lesson 6, or our discussion with the Civil Code of the Philippines. Again, these are just selected provisions, very basic provisions of the Civil Code. I did not complicate anymore these provisions, and I did not actually discuss basic jurisprudence, given that those are for law students. And I think what I need for you is for you to have just very basic understanding and very basic knowledge on these provisions of the Civil Code. Because I think that's already enough for you to be able to protect our children, to know what you can do as teachers in the future to help our children. That's actually very important. And I do hope that you have understood the things that I have discussed, because as I keep on saying, we'll be having an examination. That's the only way for me to know if you have really understood the things that I have discussed in this subject. So that's why I keep on giving examinations. So by the end of June, we will be having our pre-final examination, and that means we are about to end the semester because we'll be going with we're going to proceed with our module 4 already. So we are about to end the semester, and I think I'll be missing you because I've dedicated a lot, and I really enjoyed teaching you. So hopefully as we end the semester, you'll be able to show me that you are also dedicated in the subject. So again, that ends our discussion, and right now I think the most important thing for you to do is to just stay at home and study. Think of your parents, think of your grandparents, and I think I've already discussed what are your rights as children. At the same time, what are your obligations to your family? So because of that, I think you already know what to do right now, most especially that we are under MECQ. So find ways to help your family in this trying times, in these very hard times for our province. Find ways to help your family and find ways to improve yourself, because we can only enjoy so much during this quarantine. We're not supposed to enjoy this quarantine, but at least find a way to become a better person, or come out as a better person and become, a useful citizen in our country as we end this quarantine that we're experiencing right now. Again, these are just trials that has been given to us, and I think if we'll just stay united, if we do things rightly, follow all those health protocols, observe social distancing, and I think we can really, really help stopping the spread of this virus. Then we can become we can do our part in helping our country, and we need to enjoy life. We need to enjoy our freedom. So we can only enjoy our freedom if there's no virus anymore. So right now, I just want you to stay at home, enjoy some things or some hobby, and enjoy reading. That's the best thing that you can do, and that's the best thing you can offer for your family, and that's the best thing you can offer for your teachers, and that's actually the best thing you can offer for this country. Stay at home, save lives. That's actually, we keep on repeating, we keep on saying that, but yeah, that's very important. You need to stay at home in order to save lives. Be heroes in your own ways. Again, we must be socially relevant because we are social science major. So again, social sciences major. So again, we must be relevant in our society. We must be relevant in our community, and we must do our part in order to help one another. So again, with that, I say good day to all of you, and be safe, be healthy, and I'll be praying for all of you. Thank you.